Around the Amazon River, there's a huge rainforest that's full of fascinating animals and plants. The Amazon rainforest. In South America lives a bear that eats ants, the anteater. The anteater uses its tongue, which is very long. The Andes are a very large mountain chain that crosses much of the continent. Many of the foods that we eat every day are native to America: tomatoes, potatoes, chocolate, and peanuts. The Carnival of Rio de Janeiro is the largest in the world, and there are always some floats and amazing costumes. Did you know that penguins live only in the southern hemisphere? There are no penguins in the northern hemisphere. South America is a continent full of different people and cultures. The Spaniards and the Portuguese colonized it, but it's been years since all the countries achieved their independence. Around the Amazon River, there's a huge rainforest that's full of fascinating animals and plants. The Amazon rainforest. In the Amazon rainforest, there are many tribes, each with their own language and culture. Some of them have no contact with the outside world. Polar bears live in the Arctic Circle, and they're the largest terrestrial carnivores there are. The Inuit tribe live in the icy areas of the north. They were able to build amazing ice-made igloos. North America is made up of 3 very large countries: Canada, the United States, and Mexico, and also by an ice-covered island that belongs to Denmark, Greenland. In the United States, the largest trees in the world grow. They're called sequoias. There are some that are so big that a road can cross through the trunk. Before the Europeans arrived in America, this continent was inhabited by the Native Americans. The bison are very large animals, and they live quietly grazing on the immense American grassland. The bald eagle is very nice and elegant and is the national symbol of the United States of America. As Europeans conquered America, in most countries they speak English, Spanish, or French. In Central America, there are large rainforests with animals as fabulous as the macaws. They know how to imitate people's speech. The Caribbean is full of small islands, and it is paradise for tourists looking for the tranquility of its beautiful beaches. The Panama Canal is an artificial passway that allows ships to cross the continent without having to go around. Iceland is an island in northern Europe that had a volcano eruption not long ago, and who knows when it can do it again. Today, Halloween is celebrated in many parts of the world, but it started in Europe, and is believed to specifically be from Ireland. Did you know that Santa Claus lived in Northern Europe? Specifically, in a country called Finland. Europe is the second smallest continent and is full of small countries with different languages and traditions. The climate of Northern and Southern Europe are very different. In the north, it's quite cold, but in the south, it's much warmer and full of beaches. In Europe, we can find the smallest country in the world, Vatican City, and also the largest, Russia. Strange, right? In Europe, there are still remains of many medieval castles. Some are used to record movies and TV shows. Many of the countries of Europe have organized and joined to form the European Union. In this way, they can use the same currency, the euro, and eliminate many of the borders within them. In Europe, there are many famous monuments like the Eiffel Tower, which is in Paris, the capital of France. Some endangered animals live in Europe that cost a lot to see in the wild, such as lynxes, wolves, or imperial eagles. Some of the most influential civilians have originated in Europe, the Greeks and the Romans. The climate of Northern and Southern Europe are very different. In the north, it's quite cold, but in the south, it's much warmer and full of beaches. Asia is the largest and most populated continent in the world. It's also the continent where more things are made. Clothes, telephones, toys, everything you can think of. In Asia, we can find a little of everything. Deserts, rainforests, glaciers, etc. The Trans-Siberian is a train line that crosses most of the continent, and it's over 9,000 kilometers long. It takes 7 days to do the whole tour. The Great Wall of China is amazing. It was built by the ancient Chinese many years ago to protect themselves from their enemies, and it's the longest wall in the world. Today, it's a very important tourist attraction. In some Asian countries, people use chopsticks to eat. Do you know how to use them? One of the most beloved animals in the world lives in China, the panda bear. The most popular religions were born centuries ago here: Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism. Many people live in Asia, a lot. In fact, more people live here than on the rest of the continents altogether. In Asia, we can find a little of everything. Deserts, rainforests, glaciers, etc. There are also elephants in Asia. Although they are smaller than those in Africa, sometimes they're domesticated and they're of great help to people. In some countries in this region, there's a lot of oil, which is then sold all over the world. The highest mountains in the world are found in Asia, and the highest of them is Everest. Tigers are fabulous animals that only live in Asia, but unfortunately, they're in danger of extinction. In Asia, we can find a little of everything. deserts, rainforests, glaciers, etc. In Asia, there are also many islands, such as the Philippines and Indonesia, which are full of amazing landscapes and animals. Africa is the warmest continent of all because it has the most surface around the equator. In North Africa, we can find many domesticated camels and dromedaries, as they're very useful for traveling and transporting goods through the desert. The Sahara Desert is the largest desert in the world. It's very hot and it almost never rains. In Africa, there's the largest desert in the world and also the longest river, the Nile River. Fascinating, right? The savanna is a large meadow with a few trees, where animals like zebras, lions, cheetahs, and rhinoceroses live. In Africa, there are trees that are strange and unusual, like the baobabs. In Africa, there are also large, dense jungles where incredible animals like gorillas live. In Africa, there are many valuable resources like diamonds, but sadly, sometimes there are wars and disputes to see who owns these resources. In Africa, there are very large modern cities, but there are also small towns where people live with very ancient traditions. In Africa, there are many national parks to try to protect the fantastic animals that inhabit them from the poachers. Oceania is the smallest continent of all and the least populated. It's made up of a giant island, Australia, and thousands of small islands. The Great Barrier Reef is the world's largest coral reef. It's longer than Italy. It's beautiful, isn't it? In Oceania, there are thousands and thousands of small islands. Many of them are considered a true paradise, thanks to its beaches and crystal clear waters. In Oceania, there are many different cultures, and many of these cultures have beautiful traditional dances. In the ocean surrounding Oceania, there are not only goldfish, there are also big sharks, like the white shark. The Aborigines are descendants of the first inhabitants of the continent. They have very old customs and traditions and have a great respect for nature. The koalas are nocturnal animals, famous for spending most of their lives sleeping in trees. They sleep for about 18 hours a day. The English and the French brought their languages and their customs to Oceania, although before their arrival, there were already many inhabitants. The platypus are amazing animals. They are mammals, but they lay eggs. Kangaroos are amazing animals. They can jump very high and very fast and take their young in a bag they have in their belly. Most of the inhabitants of Oceania live in Australia. It is huge. There are big cities like Sydney, and it has a desert.